yesterday during a workshop that was given yesterday on finding and creating your story, we started with an introduction. And the introduction was, who are you without your name, your job position, the roles that you have in your life, or where you come from. And instead of introducing ourselves, because you can see our names already and the companies for which we work, I'm going to ask each of us to introduce ourselves in that very same way. So I'd like to start with you, Jessica.
Hi, I am a mother, a caretaker of 2 daughters and 2 furry kids, a pug and a Frenchie. I'm an adventurous spirit, and I'm a really tenacious hard worker.
Thank you. Rachida?
I'm a mother of dragons. I have 3 boys. Yes. I have lots of fun with my boys, with my colleagues, with my clients. I'm a hard worker. I can be directive if I need to. I'm a caregiver, I'm a giver. But ultimately, I'm someone who has fun and wants to have fun.
Thank you. Paul?
I'm a partner to Dan of 14 years. I'm fun, charismatic, outgoing, blunt, and modest.
Happy everyone laughed at the last one too. I'm warm-hearted, open, hardworking. I believe in real connections. I'm very frustrated with things that I see in the world, and in my own way, I try to do something about that. The reason why I ask this question is because when we connect to each other, especially when it comes to these conferences, it's not only on this business card level, it's on this personal level. When you choose that you want to work with someone or you want to connect with them, you connect on that level. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to take some time to actually talk about that, the human factor, the connecting factor. What is it that really makes us not only work together, the things that we want to see on the workplace and change. The 3 of, I've had a moment to have conversations with them individually and together, and what I'm really touched with all 3 of them is that they all have a very strong personal story, but most of all about how they're trying to do that, change things in their personal lives because of what they've experienced, what they've seen, and how they want to inspire others to do the same. So I'm going to ask them each to just share their personal story and anecdote. What I'd like you all to do is just take from it what you can when it comes to what could I do about that? What questions can I ask myself? Just seeing who can I ask first. Jessica, can I ask you to start, please?
Okay, sure. So I'm going to give an entree to this that I'm not sharing this for a pity party, I'm sharing this as a contribution. When I was 16 years old, I was very proudly a lifeguard at a water park. And I thought it was brilliant because I got paid to get a tan and help other people. And my manager was about 25 years old. And one day, as he was like logging me out for the day, he started asking me some really personal, pointed questions about, did I have a boyfriend? And in my 16-year-old brain, I didn't have the red flag that I would have now, that was inappropriate. And then he also asked me to come to his apartment. And I also didn't have a red flag because I didn't know someone almost 10 years older than you, what that meant. And I asked my mom, I told my mom about it, and she was like, oh, absolutely, you're not going there. But she didn't say why, so I went anyway. And within moments of me arriving, he raped me. And so when it was over, I left, I went to a friend's house, and I had a really emotional sharing with her. And other than that, I never shared it with a soul because I was shameful and horrified and embarrassed, and I thought it was my fault because I should have known better not to go there. And it wasn't until last year, in the United States, we had the testimony of Christine Blasey Ford in the Kavanaugh hearings. And it all kind of came back to me through her story. And I was particularly offended and upset that people were calling her out and criticizing her. You know, it happened so long ago. Why didn't she raise it then? Why didn't she report it? And so I felt like, wow, this is something that really needs to like come to the forefront. This needs to be talked about. There's a reason why victims of sexual assault or even sexual harassment oftentimes don't share it right away, or when they do share it, they're unable to recall really specific details, is because the brain purposefully kind of fogs that out for you, any kind of traumatic event, and reporting and sharing oftentimes is like reliving the trauma. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
I firstly would like to thank you for your courage, for sharing that, because I think yours is not a unique case, and it's something that happens even now. I just like to take a moment to thank you for that. So. We are going to come back to questions we need to think about when it comes to themes and topics like this, but this is, I think, the kind of stories that I think need to be shared, and so that more people can become aware about it, but most of all, what we do about it. So thank you. Rachida.
I think when I went to school, went to universities, I've never been aware of the fact that I was a student or a human being coming from an immigrant family. It was all a very equal situation. I went to schools, to a Catholic school. I went to a Catholic high school. Actually, I'm more Catholic than my Catholic friends by my schooling. But it wasn't until I became a lawyer that I was being confronted with the fact that I am a Moroccan to start with, so an immigrant in Dutch society, and secondly, that I'm a Muslim and therefore I'm different. It started with my job interview at one of the biggest law firms in the Netherlands at the time. And after having an excellent job interview, actually, while they walked me to the elevators, they were like, "Thank you very much for coming. And by the way, may we compliment you on your Dutch?" So that was a very interesting comment. I grew up in the Netherlands. I went to Dutch schools. Of course, my Dutch is excellent, but thank you anyway. The second moment was when we had a case, we were dealing with a case at my first firm, and we were representing the company, and there was a board member that needed to be dismissed. Obviously, I'm an employment lawyer. And then two partners from the opposing party came to our offices for a meeting to negotiate a deal. So these two partners, a female and a gentleman, came into the room, and I was allowed to use the partner's room, which was a big, wonderful, beautiful corner office. He wasn't there, and he wasn't planning to attend the meeting. And my habit is to serve coffee or tea or to give you something to drink, because that's what we do at home. So I was serving everyone coffee, and then I was waiting for them to sit down. And I said, okay, we can start, so you can sit down. And the response from the lady was, "Well, we prefer to wait until the lawyer comes. So now you can go, you can go." So when I said, "Okay, I'm the lawyer, so let's just have a seat, welcome," she said, "Oh, but your Dutch is so excellent." So that's also another moment that was very striking. And I think in both situations, there was not an intention to be disrespectful or a conscious comment about me being different. It's just maybe even unconscious bias. You see someone and you think you know who's in front of you. You make a picture, you make an interpretation, like we interpret words as being lawyers. And I have given this example to some of you over the past days here. It's about, where do you put the emphasis? What strikes you when you look at someone? So an example from the court's trainings is, this man did not kill his wife. Depending on where you put the emphasis, the sentence means something different. And that's also how you look at people. Where do you put your emphasis? Is it because I'm a Muslim, because I'm a woman, or because my hair is different? You don't know something about people until you really engage with people and make an effort to understand who they are. And the last example that I want to share with you is that's one that has been very impactful for me as a lawyer, as a person, as a Muslim, as a Moroccan, as just a professional. There was a time in 2004, we had a horrible incident where a Moroccan young man literally slaughtered a very famous Dutch person in the streets. That was our first terrorist attack in the Netherlands. It was horrific. And we were at this law firm, and we had during lunchtime, we would all have lunch together with all partners. And at the time, I was a junior associate. So while everyone was sitting there, and I, of course, not yet as confident at that time as I am today to sit here in front of you all, the partner of my department, the head of the department, my boss basically, felt the need to ask me, Rachida, you are a Muslim, you're a Moroccan, so can you tell us in your Islamic culture what goes through the mind of a terrorist, basically, to slaughter someone in the street? And that was for me a moment, my brain was in overdrive. What do I do? Do I give a politically correct answer? Do I respect my boss and give a polite answer? Do I choose for myself? Is this where I draw the line? And for me, that was the moment where I drew the line. And basically, I took a moment, first of all, to point out Islam is not a culture, it's a religion. My culture is the Moroccan culture. My culture is the Dutch culture where I grew up. So that's the first part of the answer. And the second answer, I said, I will answer your question with a counter question. And the counter question I had was for him, I said, Marco, that was his name. I said, Marco, you are asking me that question assuming that because I'm a Muslim and a Moroccan, I know what goes around in the head of a terrorist. Now I'm asking you, what goes around in the head of pedophiles and child rapists? Because based on statistics, the majority are white men of your age category. And that was the end of the lunch.
Thank you, Rachida. That's at least it's a question that everyone can keep in mind. Paul.
How do I follow
Yeah,
that?
how do you follow that?
I grew up in a family business, and I can remember at the age of 14 years old, I might have even been 13, going to the Institute of Directors in London's Pall Mall, networking with my father. My mother worked in the business as well. So there was this family culture within our firm. Rolling forward a few years, I said to my father, I said, you need a London office, it needs to be a marketing office. It all came off the back of attending one of these types of accountants and lawyers events in Madeira at the age of 17, because my mother had snapped a tendon in her arm and my father couldn't go. So he arranged for me to go. So I said, okay, following on from that event, you need a London office, let me open the office for you. Fine. So I was 18 years old now. Confident, I was confident then. I'm a trained ballroom and Latin dancer, so doing public performances, as it were, was okay for me. And then I suddenly realized that along with the boss's son culture in the work environment, I'm actually having these business meetings with potential clients or other fellow professionals, and they're not taking me seriously. So I'm talking about a UK subsidiary or opening a bank account. I'm 18, 19, 20, 21, and they're not taking any notice of me. As I got a little bit older, and perhaps as experience taught me, they weren't judging me. I was just a young person going into this environment of professionalism. And Ross and I were having a conversation yesterday. I'm the second youngest member, we believe, of the group. I'm obviously no longer quite in my 20s, but here we are now, and I'd like to think I can talk the talk and walk the walk. Along with the 17, 18-year-old Paul that you sort of see before you today, I went through the phase of coming out in a very conservative environment, and it was awful, to be quite blunt. It was not pleasant. I wondered what my parents were thinking, irrespective of what was going on in school and then later in work. This was a big thing if you roll the clock back all those years ago. And depression hit, and I needed some treatment. I went and saw a therapist, and I started taking antidepressants, and it was awful. But actually, no one was judging me. It was me that was judging myself. No one cared. I was just a normal person going about the day-to-day activity. And it got to a point in time where I knew that I'd had enough of the treatment. I knew that I was better because I suddenly took the pills and went, no, that's it. And I was only on a very minor dose. And this whole depression, anxiety almost happened over a 2-year period. And that was it. And I sorted myself out and repaired and healed myself, and here I am. But depression, anxiety, what you see before you isn't necessarily what people may actually be on the inside. So, hey, I still suffer with bad anxiety to this day. I've got a flight in a few hours and I'm petrified that I'm going to miss it because of the train. I'm already putting these hurdles in place, getting out the door, all of this unnecessary thoughts that are exhausting and draining. So as part of that, I gave up coffee back in January, and I used to love coffee. Anyone would know that the Nespresso machine would come in its own suitcase with me to New Zealand. I live in New Zealand for 3 months of the year, so it's been to New Zealand, Australia, St. Lucia. But I ditched coffee because I wanted to take back that control and try and combat that. And I'm not doing too bad.
Thank you. Take an applause for him. So here's the thing. You've heard 3 different stories. I literally started with noting down all their professional accomplishments, their titles right now, partner, founder of a firm, everything that these incredibly capable people are. And here's the thing. What do we connect with? We connect with their stories. Because as incredible as they are at their jobs, and as we all can be at our jobs, what we do and the questions we need to ask ourselves is what makes us human. And I find it so courageous of them to come here and to share that particular part. I'm hoping everyone can take something from that too. What's a question or a statement or something that you feel people should ask themselves or should work with, because the themes and topics that you talk about, whether it be the way women are treated, women's rights, and harassment at work, whether it be diversity or the way we look at different cultures and how we can stereotype and judge, or like you said, stereotyping, judging, and actually creating an environment where people can actually be themselves. What questions or statements do you feel people should take with them and to ask themselves, as well as maybe change within their own environments? Can I start with you, Jessica?
Sure. I like to ask, what is my purpose? Why am I here? For me, it's full circle. It's not an accident that I work in employment law. And when I was recently working on the podcast, the Me Too podcast, the moderator kept saying, I'm so surprised that you represent businesses because you have a real heart for employees. And I do, and I feel like that's my purpose. Like I have to kind of bring myself back, and why am I here? I want all workplaces to be safe, and it also, when you're in a stressful situation, particularly, I can speak to lawyers. There's a tendency to a lot of times take on the heaviness of our clients' problems and troubles. So that also helps me, what is my purpose? Why am I here? Because it's not always your purpose to fix everything. Sometimes their mistakes are their mistakes, and so you're there to guide them and navigate them through the process.
Thanks. Rachida.
I think for me it's being here instead of being over there in the future, be it of my business plan for the firm where we want to be in 1 year, 5 years time, 10 years time, or with my children where I want them to be, bringing them to sports because I hope they become soccer stars, or bringing them to other sports events. It's all in the future, or the stories I just shared with you just now that happened in the past that still sometimes come up in my mind and have an effect on how I feel or how I perceive certain situations. So rather, I would like to ground myself more and be mindful in the presence of today, enjoy this moment with you all being here, or enjoy the sun yesterday in Amsterdam. We had 4 weeks straight rain.
Yeah, good timing being here.
Yeah, so it's more mindfulness in everything, not only on a personal level, but also on a professional level.
Right, thanks.
I think mine's twofold. Firstly, it's internal. It's how I'm feeling on that particular day or with that particular situation. And there's been many instances throughout my life, and I've looked at things, and actually this small matter I've overthought, over-escalated, overboiled, and exhausted myself in the process. But actually, when you step back, or even the next day, it might take overnight or a sleep, or actually just some time out to reset, it's okay. This small little matter that I've overthought, or that we've overthought as humans, it's not that big a deal. And actually it will sort itself out. So the first point there is it's okay. You can be stressed, you can worry about something, it will all be okay. The second is actually forgetting who or what you're looking at in terms of one another. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes. You could be a happy, perceived, charismatic person. I'm thinking of Robin Williams. We all knew what Robin Williams was like. You don't know what's going on behind closed doors. So to take that away for one another in terms of this environment that we're in, whether it's a professional, you've got friends here, you don't know what's going on. So it's just a case of giving each other a little bit of respect, a little bit of understanding, a little bit of empathy, and it's okay to not be okay.
So if you think about the different things that have just been said, on the one side, it's about what responsibilities do we take upon ourselves, and what kind of pressures do we put on ourselves on a daily basis, and are we able to know what's our role and what is something that we don't have to put on our shoulders, but can say that's yours and that's mine. And the other side, and I love what Rachida said there as well, which is also about being present and being in the moment. We are so constantly busy with either the future or we are stuck in the past. Now, as much, I almost want to ask, who does mindfulness here? Okay, all right. So mindfulness literally is just the learning of being able to be okay in the moment and being present and learning how to be more present. It's become an epidemic that we're stressed, and now we're trying to learn to be more present. And on the other side, I think we are dealing in a world where anxiety, burnout is only increasing. People are not able to share or have this safe space that they can be themselves or say what they're really going through. And you might notice we're coming into a world that's becoming more and more important. That people are either fearful for their jobs, so they won't say if they're not doing so well, so they work harder, and at a certain point, that's it, it's done. You can't continue anymore. Have any of you got examples of how you practically do that on the workplace? So is there people or the way you've done that, or how you've tried to either help others or you've gone through it yourself? Whoever wants to.
I'll go first.
Yeah, sure.
Invariably, we're dealing with figures and Excel spreadsheets, and sometimes you can actually look at it and just think, okay, I just need to take time out. And that doesn't necessarily mean sticking on Metallica or something heavy in the background or having a jig or anything like that. It's just stopping, going outside, and just getting to know those senses, the smell, how cold it is, just for 5 minutes, just to take yourself away from the situation and then bring yourself back into it. It sounds simple. It is simple to a certain degree, but it does take practice, because it's the ability to be able to go, stop, take a break, and come back to it. And it's that taking a break practice that allows you to actually just recharge the batteries, whether it's a spreadsheet or something else. It could even be a conversation or something. It's okay to say, I'm just going to take a step back. Just bear with me a minute.
Thank you. And that's so that also in a way, I think it comes with its own courage that you have to be able to say, can I take a step back? Can I actually allow myself that? And I think often enough we don't even allow ourselves that because we feel like we have to constantly push to this certain level.
Yeah, exactly. Whether you're in front of a client or a colleague,
right.
Actually the client's paying you for a reason.
Yeah.
So to be able to say, just give me a second to think about that, it could even be overnight. If it's a specific subject matter, you just need to take a step back, reevaluate, and come back to it.
Yeah. Wow. And maybe just to share a personal example, a couple of weeks ago I went through a pretty rough, well, just something personal that I was going through and had to do with love and relationship and some matters with my dad who got ill. And I noticed how things just piled up and became so much. But I'm grateful, at least for where I work and the team that I have, is that I was at a certain team meeting. We'd had the whole meeting. We talked about all the sales and things that were going on. And I just noticed emotionally, I was just like, okay, I need to say that I can't take as much right now because it's just a bit too heavy. So then in an emotional state, I said, hey, I'm going through a tough moment. I might not be able to take as much workload. And I broke into tears at that moment. And I thought, like, oh, I'm a senior consultant here. How could I share that? How can I? But when I did, everyone was like, oh, thank you, because we felt something, but we just saw you working. What can we do to lighten your load? How can we help you? And literally it just took me 2-3 weeks, just continuing to work a little bit lower, that I was able to pick things up. But that just ability to, and I know how even, I mean, we work with things like vulnerability and openness, so even in our team, you'd think it'd be normal, but just to be able to do that was, yeah.
So on the same subject matter, a colleague of mine a couple of years ago, I could see the signs coming, and she wasn't quite working with us at the time, but I could see that she was at breaking point. She was in a job that she didn't particularly enjoy, and I could see the signs. They were right in front of me, and I said, you need to do what's right for you. I said, forget work. I said, you've got a lovely family. You just need to take some time out and do what's important for you. Needless to say, she was diagnosed with depression and signed off work for a number of months. And I said, don't worry about work, forget it. There'll be other jobs, don't worry about it, it's fine. And I think what I supported her most with is the fact that I'd been there and done that, and I could say, hand on heart, it does get better. Yeah. Whereas at that moment in time, she was rock bottom. She felt awful, and she couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And to be able to say, actually, it's okay, forget work, pick yourself back up, go through therapy, she came back to it. And she lives to tell the tale, because it's okay.
Yeah. Jessica, and I'm always still, it always silences me a little bit, the story that you tell, and especially your ability to tell it. What ways do you try to either recognize what happens on the work floor and inspire maybe other women to either speak up or to maybe deal with what they've gone through?
Well, I participate, there's a prep school that's for underprivileged children in Dallas, and so I speak each year. They have like a Me Too movement, and that was the first time I shared this story, just because I realized they were the age that I was when that happened. And you know, when you're 16, you're naive and you don't know certain signs, and so it was a group, it was like an all women, it was a safe environment, and so I try to contribute that way. I try to do it on the business side of just really, at least American companies, with most companies, stereotypically, it's about the bottom line, the bottom dollar and counting the pennies and them doing the minimum, under the law. And some states require to have sexual harassment training, and most companies know that they should have a sexual harassment policy, but I really try to push the envelope to them to really create an environment that's free from that type of abusive behavior and conduct. And if someone complains, take it seriously and make sure you have a person that's receiving complaints that's open and that's trained. Not just taking a complaint and then trying to create a defense and just discounting it.
Yeah, we are talking to lawyers here, so. No, but I mean, it's on point though. Yeah, thanks. And Rachida, remember when we were talking, we also said about how, especially coming from a different cultural, from a diverse cultural background, I don't want to say different, diverse, how do you try to maybe inspire others, those from a different, a diverse cultural background, to actually step into this world where they may feel intimidated?
I'm not sure if it's an active wanting to inspire someone, but from where I perceive it, it's rather, empowering them, because you can do whatever you want. The Netherlands is truly a wonderful place to be and to live, because all opportunities are basically the same for everyone. So if you want to achieve high, you will achieve high. And my recommendation would be not to think about or be consumed with what others might think of you. And when you are in your 20s, you're very concerned about, am I doing this right? Am I doing that right? Am I wearing the right clothes? Am I saying the right words? What are they thinking of me?
Yeah.
And then while you grow a little bit older, like in your 30s, maybe even early 40s, you can be concerned, you're like, okay, now I feel comfortable in my own identity. I care less about what they are thinking about me. I'm okay. And when you grow a little bit even older, like me, you start realizing nobody actually was thinking about you. Everyone is doing their own thing.
Yeah.
So just focus on yourself, on your own ambitions. If you have standards, live by your own standards and don't try to meet, standards that are set by a company. If you have your own standards, you'll always achieve higher, you'll always do better. It will be something of your own that is driven by your core passion, by your own drive, by your own ambition. And instead of thinking of yourself being different, the moment you start doing that, that's the moment you are on the sideline of life and the train is going and you are like wondering, why am I not being included? It's because you are excluding yourself. So my advice would be submerge, adapt, enjoy, have fun.
Yeah.
Eat and drink.
Yeah.
That's so important, because 20-something, and even younger than that, I have a friend of mine, and her daughter has just celebrated her 9th birthday, and she had a picture taken of herself at 9 years old, and she said, "Mum, look, I look fat."
Oh, Lord.
At 9 years old. So
Yeah.
it doesn't matter whether you're 9, 19, 29, there's too much peer pressure sometimes around how we should behave, how we should conduct ourselves. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because as you get older, 10, 20, 30 years on from that, you look back and think, no one cared.
It was a waste
no one
of
judged
time.
me. A waste of energy as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And I think that one of the reasons why why we are approaching these topics is because this happens on the work floor all the time. You are either judging yourself or you are comparing yourself constantly. I know, coming from a diverse background myself, I was also constantly thinking, can I do this? Can I integrate myself with the other Dutch people? I was constantly struggling with that because I felt often like an outsider. I'm Dutch, I was born in the UK, my parents come from Pakistan, people have a certain image about it. How do I deal with that? So it's also not comparing myself with that standard, but creating my own. And I think it's also, what I also try to make sure I do is to not let that make a difference, but also ask myself, who am I? That first question. But also the question, why do I do this? What's the bigger purpose and the reason I do this? Jessica, why is it that you do the work that you do today, if I may ask?
I want to make the world a better place. I know it's really Pollyanna.
All right. And can I ask, in what way are you trying to make the world a better place?
Well, I could wax poetic about a bunch of ways, but in the microcosm of employment law, I want specifically women and all minorities, but I want them to be safe at work. I want them to be respected. I want them to actually have, equal rights to be and do and, whatever they want to do. You know, I raise my daughters, that they can do anything, but, statistically still, in the U.S., a majority of companies are ran by men. So it's, it's one of those little steps, little baby steps to make a difference.
Look forward to seeing how your daughters are going to come into this world. Paul, how about you? Why do you do the work that you do?
I like people. I'm a people person, and actually, if I'm talking to a potential client or even a client, they're entrusting me to look after their UK business interests. And I'd like to think that I'm caring and considerate and personal and professional, but in order to really help a client set up and succeed in the UK, I need to understand them so that I can have the foresight to see what's coming ahead and to advise them appropriately. Every client's different, whether it's an owner-managed business or a tech software startup. I like working with our clients that have got a story to tell. I know that sounds cliche sitting here today, but actually every one of my clients has got a story to tell, and I really try and understand that because I like working with people.
Yeah, thanks. Rachida, why do you do the work that you do?
Because it's fun to have your own business.
Some people can relate here.
Yes.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
No, but from a business perspective, there are a lot of tax lawyers, accountants in this room. People become lawyers not because they are good with numbers, but because they're good with language. But even a lawyer, after a number of years, starts to understand numbers, and when you start understanding numbers, that's when you start your own business. So it's a good business model to start with. And it's a lot of fun because I'm doing this work together with Madeleine sitting here in the front. We have a unique partnership. She is the best partner I could have wanted in the world. We are complementary, and it makes everything we do fun, genuinely, whether it's work, whether it's social events, whether it's being here. We drive each other to better achievements. And in the meantime, of course, we understand our work. We are experts in our own field, little niche of employment law. And with that, we are able to help others. Employment law, especially in the Netherlands, can be extremely daunting for foreign companies or, foreign clients. And if you are able to reduce that complexity to something simple that they understand and then advances their business, you are helping each other. And then it becomes like a partnership, and the sky is the limit.
So whether it's trying to make the world a better place and making the world a better place, understanding people's story, and also doing things from a perspective of good collaboration. And I love the fact that you use the word fun so often.
Oh, yes.
I was on the boat tour on Sunday. That was definitely fun.
That was fun.
But what I think it really boils down to that again, is what we started with, the human factor. As much as when we come here, the first thing you do is you shake someone's hand and you say, what's your name? What's the company that you work for? You put people in a category. If we connect to each other as real people, not only here, but in other settings, you'll notice that's when you can create sustainable partnerships, and who knows, even friendships. I know many of you have been coming back to this conference year after year, and then friendships do occur, and those are the ones you start working with. With a couple of minutes that we have left, I want to open the floor for any questions that you might have for any of us. So I'll pause for a moment if you need to think about that. Any questions, any maybe comments, or I'm not sure where the mic is, if there's a mic in there, but oh, there. Yes, there's a question or comment in the back. Just a comment.
My name is Wissam Abu Slayman, and I guess on behalf of everybody here, I want to thank you, all of you, for sharing your stories. They were very touching, And I see you as some of the bravest people I've ever met in my life, and I want to applaud you.
I have a follow-up question for you, and it's
For me?
Yeah, on purpose. Why is it? What is it that triggered you?
I wasn't ready for that question.
I'm grateful that you said it, but I want to know what is it that triggered you?
They were true. They were true. They were heartfelt. They were inspiring. My legs are shaking, by the way, and it was honest. You could feel the genuity behind their stories. You can feel the pain in some of them. You can feel the despair, but you can also feel the win. Not the win. I don't know what the word is yet, because I'm trying to translate in my head. But you can really honest feel that they overcame, and they're better people for it, and I feel a better person because of them.
Thank you. Any other, maybe one or two last questions or comments? There's one over there, right next to you.
Yeah, so it's just a comment that from your question to Wissam, that I think one of the reasons, I don't want to read Wissam's mind, but I think one of the reasons he probably said that is it's because it's important to encourage people that share their stories, because it's difficult to do. It requires courage. And the more that people realize that they have people's support, the more that they will come out and other people will come and tell their stories.
Yes.
So I think that's one of the reasons Wissam said what he did.
So this is one of your reasons. Okay.
Yeah, that's definitely one of my reasons for saying that.
Right. Thank you. All right. Anyone? Last one? Question or comment? Yes, there's one over here at the front.
Hi. If we have 2 or 3 minutes, I'd like to tell a little story as well. Not about myself, but taking on from Jessica's comment as to making the world a better place. And I think each one of us can make the world a better place by just doing small acts of kindness. And I want to tell you a story. It's a Christmas story. We are coming up to Christmas. It's a story that my mother told me, and it's touched me in so many ways. And I think you can adapt it to any situation you have. So if you have 2 minutes.
We have less, but I think we're all now got our either it's our cortisol, dopamine, which one of them is shooting in. So I'd say, please go ahead.
Okay. So this is on Christmas Eve. There's a man called Paul, and he comes out of his office, and he's walking towards his brand new Mercedes car. And he sees a little street boy admiring the car. And the boy looks at him and says, "Mister, what a lovely car you have." And he says, "Yes, it's brand new, and my brother gave it to me as a Christmas present." And the boy says, "Wow, I wish." And Paul says, he thinks he knows what the boy is going to say. He's going to say, "I wish I had a brother like that." But then the boy says something which, takes Paul aback. And the boy says, "I wish I could be a brother like that." And that story has sort of stuck in my memory for a long, long time. And what the man did is then he took the boy for a drive in his car, and they had the most wonderful Christmas dinner ever. So it's a story which, as I said, you can adapt it to any situation you have. And any little act of kindness, you give a little gift to someone poor, see the smile on their face, or take a little child in your arms and see the smile on their face. It goes so much more than getting something. It's much more joyful to give something.
Thank you very much.
I wanted to share that story.
Thank you very much. I had the chance of having a nice conversation with Aleph on the boat as well on Sunday, and it was nice to meet him. And I think he's filled with these kind of small anecdotes. And thank you for sharing this one too. And maybe just to wrap things up for now, I'd like to give our speakers here. I don't even consider them more than speakers. These wonderful individuals. We had a short moment just with these four of us where we were having a conversation, and while that was happening, we're like, this was quite not only unique to have this kind of conversations, but the fact that it takes the courage to open up, but it's also that this is what really makes the world a better place. These kind of conversations, opening up. Thank you for the comments that you've given. Thank you for your stories, and thank you, Thomas, for allowing this to happen.